Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back to the best hour, give or take, a video you'll see today. It's the Pickswise NFL Show. I'm Rachael Van Oranje, and I'm joined by the one and only Coach Jeff Reinebold. Hi Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Jeff, what a week one we just had. I'm so excited. We found out a lot of things last Sunday, right? Found out Aaron Rodgers, he's still a bad man. And that maybe drafting a quarterback could have been probably the best thing that Green Bay did to reinvigorate his career. We learned, unfortunately, well, I already knew, Russell Wilson, he's a chef, and all Pete Carroll's got to let him do is cook. He cooked up 4 touchdown passes, lit up my Falcons secondary. The Jaguars, they didn't get the memo that they're supposed to be tanking for Trevor. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, they flew high over the 49ers. Philly blew a 17-0 lead over the DC football team. I may never get used to that. The Patriots, Saints, Ravens, they all kicked off their season with wins. Mitchell Trubisky ruined Matt Stafford's return, led the Bears to a comeback win against the Lions, like you called that one. But enough about that. What did you learn in week one, Jeff? But what caught your eye?
Well, I learned one thing for certain, Rachel, is that if fans watch this show and they listen to what we say, we're going to make them some money. So that was the biggest takeaway that I had from the week, because it was a good week. And I think we ready to roll on into week 2.
Yeah, I agree with you. You are a prophet. You had the Bills -6, and that delivered. That was your lock of the week. The Saints -3.5. And you and I both agreed the Chiefs 9.5 favorites. You were certainly right about the Cowboys breaking some hearts. Best analogy of the year. I still hold that one. Jeff, what do you think about your picks? You feeling pretty confident going forward?
Well, I think, when we did learn an awful lot of things football-wise after the weekend. The Bucs, and I'm going to channel my inner Dennis Green. The Bucs, who we thought they were. They were a team in transition, a team that's, a couple of the throws that Brady made, you can see it was just inexperience with his receivers. It'll take time in Tampa for them to, to get that offense going on all cylinders. But they're a talented team. I thought their defense was better. I was shocked with the Colts. I mean, that one was beyond belief to me. And the scary thing, if you're a Colts fan, is that was the Phillip Rivers that we saw last year in San Diego. And he throws a horrible pick late in the game. And then the Lions, the collapse that they had in the fourth quarter was, again, one of those things you just shake your head. Obviously, there's never guarantees in pro football, but certainly when you've got a 16-point lead in the fourth quarter, you should expect to win the football game.
Jeff, I'll tell you what is guaranteed in life. It's like death, taxes, and probably the Lions defense blowing a lead, especially in the second half of the game. And to touch on your comments about the Bucs, I want to know your thoughts as a coach, Jeff. We know it's been all over the news. Bruce Arians, never been one who's shy with words, but he is dealing with the GOAT in Tom Brady. Okay, this is a dude who has multiple rings, many more than Bruce Arians has, and it'd be a hard person to coach, I would think, if you even really coach somebody like that. But I digress. Bruce Arians has not been shy about saying a lot of this was Tom Brady's fault, just flat out. How do you, as a coach, what do you think about that? Is that right? Is that how you do it?
Well, I think there's, Bruce has got to be Bruce. No matter who you are, it's got to be authentic, because what happens, Rachel, is if you're somebody that you're not, the players, they can smell that in 15 minutes. So BA has always been a guy, as you said, that's been very outspoken. And if your football sucks, he's going to tell you your football sucks. And it's not personal. It's just about your football. And to be honest with you, there were some plays that he was late on an out ball that got picked for a touchdown. The other interception, I think that was as much just not being in sync with his receivers. You get what you get with Tom at this point in his career, and he's gonna, obviously he's a prideful guy. He's got all kind of Super Bowl rings, but Bruce is gonna coach them all the same way, and he's just as tough on himself. When he doesn't feel like he delivers, then he'll put it out there too. So I don't think Tom's feelings are going to get hurt. I think you're going to see a much more determined Brady. And remember, these guys have just been together for a little over a month, in the huddle. And it takes time to develop an offense. And What I do think you're going to see is you're going to see the ball to his wideouts more this coming week, because I think that there were opportunities out there. And again, the Saints play good defense. There's no question about that.
All right. Well, no risk it, no biscuit. We're going to risk it and continue on with the show and get to our next picks of week 2. Let's go. All right, Jeff. So let's move on to week 2. Thursday night football this week. It's a clash of the AFC North Titans, Bengals travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Both teams sitting 0-1 after a disappointing week 1 and defeats for different reasons. Before we get into that, let's talk about the line. Now, the Browns, they opened up as 8.5-point favorites before week 1. And now there's been a slight swing, and they are currently a 5.5-point favorite as of today, which is Wednesday. The over-under is at 43. Now, the Browns, kind of disappointing to say the least, losing 34-6 to the Ravens. Look, there's nothing wrong with losing to last year's MVP, to Lamar Jackson. Nothing wrong with that. But they were scoreless after the first quarter, and that pretty much tells you all you need to know. I know that Cleveland Brown fans, they just wanted to see their team be competitive, but it didn't look that way. And then the Bengals, they showed you a good amount of promise with Joey Burrow under center. It's his first game. And they were unfortunate not to send their game against the Chargers into overtime after good old Randy Bullock, A&M hero, got injured while kicking the late 31-yard field goal, eventually losing that one 13-6. Now, Jeff, do you think that the 2.5-point swing back in favor of the Bengals was fair after seeing what both teams did in week 1?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty fair spread right now. I really believe that Kevin Stefanski gets 2 really good things this week. Number one, it's a short week, so you got to flush the last game out, and you got to move on right now because you play again in 4 days. And then the other thing is it's the Bengals that are coming to Cleveland. So when you look at those 2 things, I think right about 5 points is where this one's going to be. I like the Browns here. I think the Browns are too talented to not be better offensively, particularly. They've got to find a way to get OBJ involved in the offense. He was targeted, I think, 8 times, only had caught 2 balls for 22 yards. Those are hardly, MVP receiver, Hall of Fame numbers. Everybody's kind of anointed him as a great receiver. The fact is he's got great talent, but right now the production isn't matching the talent. They've got to get the running game going. J.C. Treader should be back this week at center. So I think those are all positive things for the Browns. The Bengals, on the other hand, it was interesting to hear A.J. Green talk about, Joe Burrow. And he talked about the composure that he had during the course of the game, especially that last drive that you talked about, OJ. I think that Joe Burrow has a bright future. They've got to protect him better than they did. He got knocked down too many times. And they've got to get Mixon going. They've got to get the running game going. He had 90. I think Joe Burrow had 90 yards of rushing himself, 46 of it, I think, on one big play, quarterback draw. But that you're not going to win in the National Football League running quarterback draw. You got to be able to throw the ball, and you got to be able to have a run production from your running back. So I'm going to take the Browns over the Bengals in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Browns over the Bengals as well. Mostly just because Bengals, rookie quarterback, and I have a lot of faith in Joey Burrow and what he's going to do in this league. But they have a stout pass rush. They have a good secondary, even though their secondary looked like garbage against the Ravens, and they sat there and let Lamar chop them up from the pocket, which it is a whole nother story in itself. But I think it's going to be a little bit too much to ask of the rookie quarterback, especially with all the new pieces that they have there in Cincinnati. Now, I want to talk, just to emphasize a little bit more on the Browns. Like I said, their secondary looked like they didn't look good against the Ravens. And how much of the Browns' overall performance on Sunday was because they were facing such a good team like the Ravens, or are there some major flaws and major issues here?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Delpit got hurt in preseason. He's out, and that was a guy they were counting on to have an impact. Greedy Williams didn't play particularly well. He's nicked up. I don't know if he's going to play or not. The thing about it is, Rachel, when you look at them structurally, the Ravens cause you so many problems because they can get into formation and personnel groups that you don't normally see, multiple tight end things, and you've got to have an 8th guy in the box because of Lamar and the running game. So that creates one-on-one matchups all over the field. And Lamar has shown us that he's improved his throwing ability from the pocket. So anytime you're playing that much one-on-one outside, your corners are really in stress. And, I think it's a different week this week. Again, if Cincinnati can't run the ball, then the Browns will sit in too deep, and it'll be tough for Joe Burrow. But if Cincinnati can get the run game going and force them to drop another guy into the box, then those corners are going to have to play for Cleveland.
Yeah, and I was a little bit surprised to see that they couldn't get Austin Hooper more involved. What Matt Ryan did with him in Atlanta, and I know Matt Ryan and right now Baker Mayfield are not on the same level, but he's such a talented tight end. I just couldn't believe that he only had I think 2 or 3 receptions, and I don't know. But anyways, the over-under on this game is at 43, Jeff. What do you think about that?
I think that's pretty good. All of Vegas is making it tough on us this week because
they are.
Feds and you look at all the over and unders, and there's none out there glaring. You say, "Oh, there's one I want. Give me that one." I think that this game has the potential to be an over game, but again, I don't have enough faith right now in the Bengals' ability to score points. Now, again, San Diego's a good defense. We'll give them that. But they really looked like they were struggling to move the football effectively until that last drive. And so, again, I would hesitate because to get an over, you got to have both teams scoring. And right now, I don't see the Bengals scoring a lot of points.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I said, defense of the Browns too strong. I think Baker Mayfield and the Browns, I think they're going to run the ball well. I think they're going to get the receivers more involved. I have them scoring probably around 24, 27 points. But the Bengals, it's going to probably stay around 10. So, yeah, I'm going to take the under as well. All right, Jeff, now we're going to move on to Sunday. The pick of the early games sees the Rams. They're traveling to the Lincoln Financial Field to take on the Eagles, who most people think underperformed last week. I'm right there with them. We opened up with the Eagles. They're favored by 3. But after week 1, it's now the Rams are favored. They're favored by 1 point, and the over-under is 47. Now, the Rams, they opened their season with a 20-17 win over the Cowboys. Cowboys broke Dallas's hearts, like you said. Malcolm Brown had 2 touchdowns. Robert Woods went for over 100 yards. And the defense, well, Aaron Donald and them guys, they're disruptive as ever. If the Rams' first week was that successful, the Eagles were the complete opposite. They had a 17-0 lead over Washington, and you just thought they were just going to cruise to a win, and DC is just going to end up drafting another quarterback next year. Maybe they're tanking for Trevor. But they come back, and the Eagles end up losing the game to DC 27-17. The Eagles didn't score a single point in the second half. Jeff, how surprised were you about the line change, making the Rams the favorites now? And what do the Eagles need to do to improve?
Well, the NFL's a what have you done for me lately league, and the bettors see that, and to go and collapse, an utter collapse like they had against the Washington football team that frankly is not very good. That was a shocker. And I had seen it get the 17-point difference like you talked about, and I checked out of that game. And then all of a sudden I go back and check the scores, and it says Washington run. I thought it was a misprint. I was like, there's no way they could do that. But the Eagles found a way to screw it up, and screw it up big. Now, this one, I think it's a reflection of the Rams as much as anything else, because what we saw, I think, out of the Rams, Rach, was that was vintage Sean McVay offense. Those young running backs give them juice. The offensive line played better than it did last year. You saw some new things out of them, some empty sets that you hadn't seen before. You saw some 2 tight end stuff that you hadn't seen before. They've basically been an 11 personnel team, but they controlled the tempo of the game. A lot of no huddle. Then they'd huddle. Then they kept Mike Nolan, who's a veteran defensive coordinator, off balance the whole night. So I thought that was a really good indication of what the Rams are capable of. Goff is good enough to beat anybody when they're able to run the football. And so I think that's, it's reflective of the way the two teams performed the first week. The tough thing is the Rams got to go all the way to the East Coast, and that's tough. When you make that travel from west to east, it is tough. You're going 4 time zones different, and normally that's going to account for at least 3 points. I think that the Rams will win this, and I think it's going to be a close game, though.
You think it's going to be a close game? Okay, I'm gonna differ with you a little bit on that. I think the Rams are going to take full advantage of the Eagles secondary. I know they have Darius Slay over there, but outside of him, there's just not much that they're working with over there, and still having some receiver issues. It looks like Dallas Goedert and Ertz, great tight end receiving unit there, but outside of, they need a running game. They need so much, and they need to protect Carson Wentz better. And I think Aaron Donald is going to absolutely feast on Carson Wentz. I'm worried about his health in this game. I'm gonna take the Rams by at least a touchdown. Now, do you have any view on the over at the point total set at 47?
I'd take the under. I really would. I think the Rams defense. Cowboys got a lot of weapons, and they did a great job against the Cowboys. So I don't think the Eagles can roll out the receiving core that the Cowboys can. And certainly, I think Dak is equal to Carson Wentz. I don't think that the Eagles have a running back like Zeke. So when that Rams defense played as well as it did in their first trip out, and you factor in the thing that you hit on, which I think is really, really key, is the Eagles are chewed up in the offensive line right now. And that's not whether it's Aaron Donald or Brockers or that defensive front is nasty from the Rams. So that's a huge edge right there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to side with you on that one. So you're taking the under, right?
I'm going to take the under, 47. And I'm going to take the Rams.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wish I could disagree with you more, Jeff, but for the sake of banner, but nah, I'm right there with you. All right.
Hey, we're talking about money, baby. It ain't about banner. It's about dollars.
And on to Kansas City, who's going to head to LA to take on the Chargers. Both teams sitting high at 1-0. The Chiefs, they were a 5.5-point favorite before week 1. Now they're 8.5-point favorites following their huge win over the Texans to open up their season. The over-under point total is set at 47.5. Now, it seems like a whole year ago that the Chiefs, once again, kicked the Texans' butt with a 34-20 win. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire fitting nicely into that offense with 138 yards and a touchdown. The rookie put up 138 yards and a touchdown. That's amazing. He's going to be great. The Chargers, they were beneficiaries of Randy Bullock, good old Randy Bullock's field goal missing to avoid overtime in Cincinnati with a win, 16-13 in a slightly underwhelming performance. Kind of expected them to do better there. Jeff, the Chiefs, with another big handicap this week, are they set for another big win, or is this going to be a little tougher on the road than the Texans were?
Well, obviously, you're going to LA. You're playing a Charger team that had to be looking past Cincinnati to perform like they did last week. They certainly won't look past the Chiefs. But you know what? It really may not matter because the Chiefs are so dynamic offensively. You go to SoFi Stadium, and now they go off the grass and they get onto the AstroTurf, which always plays faster. And as fast as they are, as many weapons as they have, and you hit it right on the head. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a tremendous, tremendous get for them because now they've got a dynamic running back. They aren't a physical blocking team up front, but they just kind of get in your way, and then he's got such great vision, and he's so strong through the hole that he can make a lot of plays for that offense. I think the Chiefs will win this football game. They're killing me with these spreads. I mean, last week the Chiefs were 9.5. This week they're 8.5, which are huge NFL spreads. But I think that's just the way people feel about that Chief offense. So I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Yeah, Jeff, I think we're going to see a lot of spreads like that throughout the year with the Chiefs as well as the Ravens. Both offenses just light it up. And it's like, how do you defend Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? And then they go and add Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It just seems unfair. It doesn't seem right. Like, I don't understand the football gods let this happen. Were you at all surprised by his performance? Did you expect him to jump out that strong?
Well, I picked him as my choice for Rookie of the Year. And the reason I did it was because the fit. And then the fact that in all of his time as a head coach, Andy Reid's never drafted a running back in the first round. Never, not one. Right? And he's had Westbrook, and he's had Shady McCoy, and he's had great running backs. This is the first time he's ever done that, which indicates to me that that's a guy he really likes, and he's going to get him touches. And his running style really suits that offense. I don't know how you defend him. I honest to God don't, because if you play too high to keep Hill and those guys under wraps, Watkins and all the speed they got outside, and you want to play 5 under too deep, your box is empty. And now you've got Hilaire, a hat on a hat. All he needs is just a hat on a hat, and he's going to make yards. So then you drop a guy in, and now you're playing one-on-one with that track team. And I'm just telling you, Mahomes is starting to figure this whole thing out. And it's hard to say that the MVP is starting to figure it out. But by his own admission, he never read coverages until this year. So, I mean, unless injuries hit Kansas City, I don't know who's going to stop them enough to win very many games.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Kelsey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire now, and their track team of receivers, and then their defense is good. And I'm trying to wrap this all back into the point spread. They're favored by 8.5 here. Just not even talking about how spectacular their offense is. That secondary is lights out, and they're getting to the quarterback rushing for. Like, I don't know what the hell the Chargers are going to do. Sorry, but definitely I'm taking the Chiefs again with this huge spread, and I believe you are as well. And the 47.5 over under. Do you think the Chiefs score all 48 points by themselves, or how do you feel about that?
Well, that's a great point, because if you say, oh man, 47, you got to take that as take the over on that. But remember, the Chargers got to help. And right now, Tyrod Taylor against a very, very, very average Cincinnati defense did not look great. And so they're really one-dimensional right now on offense in San Diego. And the Chiefs, I don't see a weakness in their game. So obviously, I think they will play well defensively. Tyrod, it's tough. If you can't win from the pocket, it's tough to win in the National Football League, especially when you got that other bunch that is going to score points. It puts too much pressure on you. You start to call the game like every drive you got to score, and that's not Tyrod's thing. Tyrod's a take care of the ball, manage the game kind of quarterback, and I think that's too much to ask him.
Yeah, definitely. If you could only put up 16 points against Cincinnati, I don't know how the hell you're going to keep up with the Chiefs. We're both taking the Chiefs to cover 8.5, and I'm going with the over on 47.5. You got it too, right?
No, I'm not touching that part. I'm going to leave that all to you, Rachel. That's your baby.
All right.
Like I don't know how many points the Chargers are going to score. I mean, if the Chargers score 13, then Kansas City got to score a bunch, but they're capable. So I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying that's on you.
All right, you heard it here. 47.5. Take the over, because the Chiefs probably going to score close to that by themselves. All right, go with it. On to the next one. All right, Jeff, Sunday Night Football, prime time. The Patriots are going to travel to Seattle. They're going to take on the Seahawks with no 12th man. Russell Wilson versus Cam Newton. And I think it's going to be fireworks. Now let's talk about the line. Seahawks are favored by 4, and that hasn't really changed much since the last time I saw it. Both teams opening with a win. 45 points is the over-under point total. Seattle beat my beloved Falcons 38-25. Russell Wilson looked phenomenal. Of course, he always looks phenomenal, but he looks extra phenomenal against our secondary. He threw for 322 yards. He went 31 of 35, 4 touchdowns through the air. The guy is just incredible. In the words of one of my favorites, Mina Kimes, just let him cook. Let him cook. Now, Cam Newton, he did what he did best against the Dolphins, and in Bill Belichick's offense, he was running the ball. 2 touchdowns on the ground, not so many passing yards, but the Pats, they seem to play to his strengths, which is really smart of them. Jeff, this looks to be a great game. What do you think? What do you see?
Well, let's start with the Patriots. And obviously everybody is on the Patriots hype train because they ran for 200 yards against the Dolphins. But you look at the tape, what I saw out of the Dolphins were far too many mistakes. Josh McDaniels did a great job of giving them a bunch of formations, a bunch of motion, and there were too many easy yards they gave up running the football. Now, Seattle's a different animal. They play a much simpler defense, and it's much harder to get them out of position than it was Miami, which was basically trying to check every formation and every motion, which, they got themselves in bad position. I think they will simplify. Kenny Norton will simplify the defense. They'll make New England show them that they can run the ball. Let's face it. Right now, the throwing game is not going to get it done for you in New England. So you've got to be able to run the ball effectively all the time. And I don't know right now, when you look at that group, I don't know if they're able to do that. I think Cam will have some success on the ground. But I'll be honest with you, Rachel, even when he got out of even when he got away, he doesn't look like the same guy. He doesn't look like he has that awesome acceleration that he had previously. The ball comes out of his hand a little funny as a quarterback when he's throwing it. So obviously it was a big win over Miami. But again, it was the Dolphins, remember. This is a different Seahawks team. I think we saw what Jamal Adams can bring to that Seahawks secondary as a blitzer playing down around the line of scrimmage. I think Cam will see an awful lot of Jamal Adams in this game. And then you mentioned it. It's perfect. I mean, let Russell cook. Pete came out in the paper this week and says, we got to get our running backs involved. Pete, you scored 38 points. I mean, come on, man. Metcalf has grown a tremendous amount. You see how much he's getting better. And Lockett's still a legitimate threat. Olsen's a legitimate threat. And I think Russell Wilson, and again, I'm going to give you all the props in the world, because when we had the first show, or 2 shows ago, you said Russell Wilson's best quarterback in football. And I think right now he might be, because he has so many ways he can beat you.
Yeah, Russell Wilson, pretty sure this is his 8th year in the league, I think it is, and never won an MVP. That might change this year. He definitely has pieces around him. But to touch on what you just said about Belichick saying we need to get our running backs more involved. Well, I'm sorry, Pete Carroll wanting to get his running backs more involved. He might want to do that just because New England's secondary is still really, really good despite the departures that they had in the offseason. So he's a smart guy. He's going to adjust. That's a versatile team, a versatile offense. I just love to see that on first and second down, it wasn't a lot of run plays. I mean, he was just letting Russell Wilson sling it through the air. So I think it's going to be a different game, though, because Belichick's defense, like I said, secondary is really good, and he'll do whatever he needs to do. So are you taking the Seahawks to win this game or the Patriots?
Well, if you just asked me, just take the game, pick a winner, I would tell you the Seahawks. Now, again, this is one of those ugly spreads because it's 4 points. But if you forced me into saying take the spread, I would still say take the Seahawks. And I think they're a better team. I think now it's every time you put film out there, you give the other team an opportunity to really hone in on what you're doing. So I think the Seahawks will be prepared defensively. It's in Seattle. It's a long trip west. Again, by the time this game gets played, it's a 4-hour time zone difference than what these Patriot players are used to practicing and playing in. So that's another huge advantage. But I like the Seahawks in this. I don't like the spread, but I like the Seahawks in this. And what is the over and under, by the way?
45 points.
I'm going to say I'd go under here because I just think that both these defenses are nasty, and they're both going to get after each other. The Seahawks are obviously much better than they were last year, at least early indications. Even though Matty Ryan threw for 400 yards, it's not Matt Ryan they're facing this week. It's Cam Newton with no receivers outside.
Yeah, for sure. He doesn't. I guess N'Keal Harry is probably the best receiver he has right now, and he's very, very young. He was injured a lot his rookie year. I think N'Keal Harry is going to end up being a star in the league. I actually watched him a lot in college, but Right now is probably not that time. Now, the Seahawks, they gave up a lot of yards through the air, but early on, they gave up a lot. I mean, Todd Gurley had a pretty good game, especially early on in the game before the lead the Seahawks had grew too much, and then they had to really start just throttling it through the air. I think that it's going to, I'm actually going to take the over in this game. I am. Russ Wilson in prime time, Cam Newton invigorated with a new team, new coach. I'm going to take the over in this game. So we both have the Seahawks winning if you want to do a money line pick, but you don't feel you're iffy about them being favored by 4, and you're going to take the under. I'm going to take the over.
Right.
All right, let's go. All right, Monday Night Football. We got the Raiders versus the Saints for the first NFL match ever in Las Vegas. I never thought this was going to happen, but it's here. Let's talk about the line, okay? The Saints, they're 5.5-point favorites to win on the road, with the point total being set at 49.5. New Orleans, they had a huge win over Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They showed just how important it is to have a quarterback and a head coach that are in sync. And the big news this week, in particular for fantasy owners, me, Michael Thomas, he's been ruled out for several weeks with an ankle injury. Now, the Raiders, on the other hand, they secured a 34-30 win over the Panthers on the road. And Josh Jacobs, he had a hell of a game. He ran in 3 touchdowns. Jeff, it's the very first game in Las Vegas for the NFL. Now, is the line too generous for the Saints here?
No, because the first NFL game in Vegas will have 0 fans. And I think that really mitigates the home field advantage. And I really like this Saints team. You look at them last week, and they ran against a really stout defensive front. I mean, when you've got guys like Ndamukong Suh, and you've got Jason Pierre-Paul, and they've got really good players up front on defense. So everybody was concerned about Kamara's inability to run the football. The Saints have enough ways they can beat you. Now, if you're concerned about Michael Thomas's injury, and certainly Saints fans are, the one thing I would say is Emmanuel Sanders, who they traded for in the offseason, had a touchdown catch in the game last week, even though he only had 3 or 4 catches. Emmanuel's been a wide receiver 1 at other places. And so that role is something that he can take on until they get Thomas back healthy. I think Drew Brees looked okay, but they did what they had to do to win the football game. They played great special teams. They were outstanding on special teams. They had averaged 19 yards a punt return. Thomas Morstead gave him great field position in the punt game. Marcus Hunt blocks a field goal that would have put Tampa Bay back in the game. So if you look at the totality of the Saints versus the Raiders, obviously I'm a Raider fan, grew up a Raider fan, but They're not there yet. Henry Ruggs helps them, yes. Josh Jacobs is one of the best young running backs in the league, yes. But they still have to play all 3 phases of the game, and that's where I give the Saints, as a better football team, a chance. They'll win this game, I believe. And again, I think they'll cover.
Okay, so you feel secure about the Saints covering that, as do I. Defensively, the Saints can pretty much put all the focus, you would think, on Josh Jacobs, dynamic running back, but he's not throwing the ball. And I just feel like the Raiders didn't get the wide receivers involved enough. Henry Ruggs, I believe he led the team in receiving yards. I have him on the fantasy team, and he only had like 55 or 60 receiving yards. So you want Hunter Renfrow to be more involved in just a more well-rounded team. I don't think that they're going to have a come to Jesus moment in that sense against the Saints defense, definitely. And as far as the Michael Thomas injury goes, Drew Brees, it don't matter who he's throwing the ball to, he's going to make a receiver out of you. He's gonna spread the ball around. He's gonna make a receiver out of you. Kamara's still there. The Saints got this easily by 6. Now, how do you feel about the point total? It's 49.5.
I'm gonna say take the under. I again, same thing. I don't know about Vegas's ability to score against that Saints defense. I mean, obviously it was a Tampa Bay team that was trying to figure it all out last week, but you look at that Saints defense, and I don't care what level you're talking about, they've got speed and talent at all three levels, and that I think is going to overwhelm the Raiders. And you mentioned it, great point. I mean, until they get more diversity in that offense, they're going to struggle a little bit. And I think Ruggs can do that, but you got to target him enough to give him a chance to get off. So I'm going to take the Saints. I think the under, and it's just the Saints are too good a football team.
Yeah, the Saints are too good of a football team. I think that the Raiders defense, even though there's no fans, there's still going to be an enthusiasm and an energy there. I don't think that they're going to let Drew Brees just go crazy on them. I'm definitely taking the under on this. And I also, because Drew Brees, I don't think is going to need to go crazy on them. I think they're going to get a solid lead and then just run the ball. So if you're playing fantasy, definitely start Kamara in this game. All right, moving on from the individual games of week 2, we are going to build our Pickswise parlay for this weekend's games. Me and Jeff, we're going to give you 3 selections, our locks, or hopefully our locks, to help you build a great parlay and win you some money. I'm going to start us off with my pick of week 2. And this one hits close to home. I live here in Houston, Texas, Jeff, and the Houston Texans are going to be destroyed by the Ravens. The Ravens by 7 right now. And I think it's going to go very, very similarly to last time I saw the Ravens and the Texans play, where they had a 34-point win. Lamar Jackson, 222 yards in the air, 4 touchdowns, and 79 yards on the ground. The Texans defense doesn't look any better to me than it did last year. You lose your savior, your receiving savior in DeAndre Hopkins. No receiving touchdowns last week. Hardly any catches by them. They're just going to get wrecked. I have the Ravens -7. What you got, Jeff?
Well, I like that. I think you're right. I think that's a great call. I'm going to take the Browns in a money line pick. I'm going to take the Browns over the Bengals. I just think that the Bengals are going to struggle to score points. It may be close, but I'm going to take the Brownies. And then, another one I like, one of the more impressive games or impressive teams I saw in week 1 was Pittsburgh in New York against the Giants. Their defense is nasty. You watched how Big Ben kind of knocked the rust off. And some of those young receivers are starting to play a little bit. It's not just all Juju Smith-Schuster. Claypool was nice. I think they've got some really talented players in Pittsburgh. And James Conner, I think, is going to play and be healthy. If he's healthy, they can run the ball. I think Pittsburgh's a good football team, so I'll take them over Denver in Pittsburgh.
Ooh, you're not feeling Drew Lock, are you? So I'm going with the Ravens to win by more than 7, but to me, the spread right now is so low. Definitely the Ravens for the spread of -7. You have the Browns beating Joey Burrow and the Bengals, and then you also are going with Big Ben and the Steelers over the Denver Broncos. I love it. That's your Pickswise parlay of the week. All right, Jeff. Now we are going to pick our dogs of the week, as it's known in the betting community, an underdog, a team who has the odds completely stacked against them at all costs. I'll go ahead and start us off with my dog of the week. And if you would have asked me last week if this is who I would pick this week, I would have said absolutely not. But after watching the Jaguars win last week against all odds. I mean, nobody. We didn't know that they could beat the Colts. Vegas didn't know they could beat the Colts, but they beat the Colts. And the Jags are underdogs by 9 points to the Tennessee Titans, who we just saw them, despite signing Jadeveon Clowney, they still don't have a sack on the year. And they won that game maybe because of Vic Fangio's, the way he handled the very end of that game. We don't really know. And so Minshew, magic, baby. The Jags, I don't know who they're going to do it with. I don't know who's going to catch balls for him. I don't know how they're going to pull this off, but they're going to do it because Minshew magic and that team missed the memo that they're supposed to tank. I got the Jags. They may not win, but they're going to be within 9 points of the Titans. Jeff, what do you got?
I got this for you, Rachel. See what this is? This is a mask. And I want you to put your mask on not because I think you got COVID. I think you got Minshew mania. I think you got a bad case of Minshew mania when you make that. Me, I'm even gonna go wilder than that because, and I may have to say I never said this someday, but I'm gonna take the Jets, who are +7 against the 49ers. The 49ers got to go all the way to New York. The Jets play great run defense, and I think the Jets are, as professionals, when you know how it works. Everybody this week has told them how awful they are. That you're not going to win a game. You might go 0-16. Those guys got pride in that locker room, and they'll come out and play. And I think they will shock the entire world when I won't say they win, but I don't think they'll lose by 7 points to the 49ers at home.
Okay, well, full disclosure here, okay? Sam Darnold is not Kyler Murray. I repeat, Sam Darnold is not Kyler Murray. So I love this pick. It takes guts to make that pick, but I love it. That's what we're here to do, right? So just to summarize that, I have the Jags, not the money line, but they're not going to lose by 9 points to the lackluster Tennessee Titans. And you have the Jets also, not money line, but they will come within 7.
All right. Now, again, I just want you to understand on that pick. Let me qualify this, right?
Okay.
I'm going to make a formal request that you send me $20 because it's only your money I would bet on that pick because that is
I love it. But you got to pick someone, man. And you know what? There's a lot of people who believe in Sam Darnold and Le'Veon Bell. I mean, Sam Darnold's supposed to be great. That's what I heard. That's what everybody told me. So
well, I know that their defense is good, and you saw that last week because Buffalo couldn't run the ball on them. And San Francisco doesn't have any wide receivers right now. So, and I don't know how healthy Kittle is.
Right.
So I think there's a chance that they may sneak up on the 49ers.
All right. And finally, Jeff, it is time for the lock of the week. We're going to provide the best bet for week 2 of the NFL. Doesn't have to be the games we discussed. It can be the games we discussed. It's up to you and I. Now, Jeff, I hate to admit this, okay? I'm competitive. Jeff won last week. He picked the Bills as his lock of the week. Great decision by you. I'm sitting dead last in this Pickswise division here. I had the Colts losing to the Jags. In my defense, nobody knew that the Colts were going to lose to the Jags. I'm sorry, I picked the Colts to beat the Jags. Duh. But in my defense, nobody knew that was going to happen. It's not my fault, okay? It's not my fault. It's Vegas's fault. Jeff, who's your lock of the week?
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to point to this game, and I might have to check myself in after the weekend because I picked the Jets, and I'm going to come right back and pick the Browns. But I like the Browns. I think they got too talented a roster. They're at home. It's Cincinnati. Everything tells me, and it's 5.5. Everything tells me take the Browns. All
right, I like that. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, the money line. I also have them winning the spread. They're favored by 9.5. The Buccaneers. Look, there's 3 things in life that are certain. Okay. It's not what I said earlier in the show. It's right here. Death, taxes, and an angry Tom Brady coming off of a loss, just coming back and demolishing the next team that he faces. I'm going with Bruce Arians, Tom Brady. They're going to have a hell of a day against that Panthers defense. Lock it in.
All right.
You like that? All right.
I like it.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to the Pickswise NFL Show, Week 2 preview. We'll be back next week, of course, to preview Week 3 of the NFL season. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck with your bets. And everybody, please remember, gamble responsibly.